Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today, two nerds reach into the pile of...
It can be movies, it can be TV shows, it can be comics sometimes, just any sort of like entertainment or art form that might mean something to you. We talk about what's worth keeping on your warp shelf. Now that can be literally, like the stuff behind me, or that can be spiritually, if it's not out physically.
The shelf inside of your body, the shelf inside your mind. Today we're talking about Wicked Part 1. Mm-hmm. Deshaun, I'm so excited to talk about this. I'm so excited to talk about. I don't know if people know how much of a fan of Wicked I am. I don't even know if you know how much of a fan.
Like longtime viewers might surmise that.
They might surmise that
as being kind of the not. I wouldn't say the prototypical or even stereotypical like theater nerd, but you are in the bubble.
Yes, I'm the theater nerd, but growing up, I had a friend who, my buddy Joe Falbella, he's a great writer and composer, and he and me, first off, did a talent show thing where he did Defying Gravity, and I was one of the guards, and I helped him practice every day. So I know Defying Gravity so well. Like, it's frightening how much I know Defying Gravity. And then we also together worked on a fan musical called The Wiccan of Oz, which is a sequel to Wicked, which I did not come up with the idea. He came up with the idea. I helped him, polish it, finish it. But we worked on like original songs set in this universe. Like, wow. This is that I'm a huge nerd about this, and he's still producing that musical, by the way. I hope he gets to finish that musical. I really do.
That is some layered nerdy shit.
Layered nerdy shit, because not only like, and we were old, like we were teenagers doing this. Like we were like we're working on this. We're making the next musical, and like
musical nerd making own musical that's basically fan fiction of another established musical.
Well, and then I mean that's not even my personal like my shining moment in high school like theater was I wrote a musical called Nazis Don't Dance, which was a big play on The Producers, of course, but it was like strictly just Springtime for Hitler, like the musical. Mm-hmm. and I just like did that the entire time, and like that's how much of a theater nerd I am, is that like that's the type of shit I was up to, was like being like, hey, let's do a riff on Springtime for Hitler where it's the whole play, and everyone was like, you can't do that. And I'm like, we have Nazi uniforms. We're going to do it. And they were like, don't do that. And I was like, we're doing it. And like, I hope that if I run for president someday, that doesn't come back to bite me, but it was all a joke to play on the Nazis, because fuck you, fascism. But besides the point is that like, I grew up loving Wicked. And this was before the musical came out. We were into the book, and then we were into the musical, and then they announced the movie when we were still, me and my buddy Joe were still hanging out in high school. Like I remember they were like, we're making the Wicked movie. And I was holy shit.
This has been in like on-off development for a long time.
Long time. Lots of directors attached, a lot of people attached. Like, I remember at the time, it was like, no, we are absolutely putting in the original stars, like we are, like that's what the Wicked movie's going to be. And then that fell apart, as things went by, and you're just like, damn, Adele Dazeem missed her real chance there. So it's one of those things where I heard about this movie. I was excited, like, cause they're making, I've heard about this since high school. And then when they're starting to like piece it together, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be great. I'm so excited. Like John M. Chu, like the man's having quite the run of movies. Like you got to give it up to John M. Chu. Like I feel like a lot of people are not talking about how much this man is absolutely killing the Hollywood game at the moment, because the man's got a long history of movies, and it's kind of wild, like, because he's like started up with Step Up 2, Then he's got Step Up 3D, and you're kind of like, okay, this is what he's doing forever. You know, he did Justin Bieber Never Say Never, which I think is funny because that's the #1 like concert movie of all time, and you're just like, oh, okay. But then you know, he did Crazy Rich Asians later on, and you're like, that was huge. And then he did In the Heights recently, which I said in our yearly recap video from last year that In the Heights was my most rewatched movie of last year. I think me and Mary just kept rewatching it, you know, like it was just like, it was just so rewatchable. It still is. If you haven't watched In the Heights yet, go watch In the Heights. If you like Hamilton, if you like, you know, like anything like that, you'll love. If you loved Wicked, go see In the Heights. But besides the point, I was all excited for this, but the one thing that stuck out to me, and I think it sticks out to everybody, and I've said this to everybody I run into, I was like, why is Ariana Grande here? You know, like I was like, why is she Glinda? Why is she playing this? Even in the trailers, I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling this. Like, and she's such a big part. Like, of course, Cynthia was killing it. I'm like, she's already amazing. I could tell from the trailers she was killing it. But Ariana, I mean, I feel
I would actually argue the opposite. I don't think the trailers for Wicked is, at least until like much later on, like the initial teasers and the like for us, I don't think looked very good.
No, I mean, I think it had vision. I just think when I saw the first trailer, I thought there was a lot of good things, but I was like, and then I saw the trailers with Ariana Grande, and I was like, even more scared. And I was like, because like I think Ariana Grande is really funny. I think she's great in SNL. Like, you know, like she does like really, she's got comedic chops. I was scared that she wouldn't be able to capture Kristen Chenoweth's bubbliness in the same way without feeling fake. You know, like because Kristen Chenoweth's Glinda is so hard to top. You know, like it's just the way she is, just bubbly inherently. You know, it's not a fake outward thing, it's who she is, you know, like and I was scared that they wouldn't be able to like grab that with Ariana Grande. I'm happy to say, guys, she's fantastic in this. I think that I don't know what you think, Deshaun, but I think
so.
She was my biggest worry. But
so we have two different perspectives here.
Yeah.
This is coming from like someone who already had like a horse in this race, who was familiar with the musical. Like my only into this is that tangentially, I watched The Wizard of Oz a million times as a kid. Never read the original like L. Frank Baum novels.
Really?
Never read Wicked.
I have.
And as far as Wicked specifically is concerned, I've listened to like the OBC like album a couple times, but that's about as far as it goes because musicals are expensive. I've only just recently started going to stuff like this with Beetlejuice and Hadestown.
I've never seen Wicked, so like that's the thing. I have watched cams. I've seen cams of it, of course.
Hey, and I've those slime tutorials.
Yeah, slime tutorials. And I've of course listened to the soundtrack over and over and over again, but I've never seen it.
That's
all
kind
the
of
way
the relationship
through.
That is, depending on where you live, kind of the relationship you got to have with these types of shows.
Right? Isn't it funny? It's like Hamilton and this is one of those things where people may never see it. You know, like that's why this is so important. This movie's so important to me, I think, is that like I may have never seen Wicked, you know, like unless I was going to London or now I might be able to because every Broadway, London, everywhere, maybe even Boston next year is going to do Wicked. And you're
Wicked's come to Boston already a couple times.
Yeah, I've missed it. And I'm like, damn, I should have done that.
It's just a matter of like when it rolled around, they didn't have the cash for it, or I prioritized something else. So like so far, the only ones I've seen have been Beetlejuice and Hadestown. 1, it's expensive. 2, it's not always over here because we don't live in New York. And 3, I mean, the industry is also, I wouldn't even say low key. It straight up is kind of classist.
Yes,
but exactly. That's another topic.
That's another topic. But I think that's what's so important about this movie is that people may have not been able to see this. And that's why I think that it was good that they did the Hamilton stage show and they just shot it and put that on Disney Plus because people may have never seen it, you know, like, and that happens for Most musicals,
Yeah, I would
guys.
love-
Most musicals.
We talked about this way back when. I think it was like the first year when we had brought the podcast back. We did the movie musicals episode.
Yes,
like we
yes.
recorded that in like the old ECAST building. Like that was
Yes.
how long ago that was. That was a while back.
That's funny.
We had talked about this obsession, like just not the industry never wanting to put out pro shots.
Yes.
Which is what they are.
Yes.
You hear that, Emmys? You hear that, Emmys? Hamilton is not a fucking TV show. It should not have been nominated.
It's true. It's like to being like, that's a TV show. You're like, the one episode TV show? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
It's not a movie either. It's just it's just a recording of the live play. That's called a pro shot. It ain't that complicated. But yeah, we don't do this that often. Even that Hamilton one, that was shot in 2016. It just went through like bidding between a bunch of different companies until eventually Disney got it. And then, once COVID rolled around, it was like, oh, I know what we could put out there.
I know what we got in the Disney vaults.
But we don't get that often. Like you maybe get like it's usually the big ones that get one, like, a Phantom of the Opera, Les Miserables.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, a lot of people hate on movie musicals. I feel like this year hated on movie musicals. We had 2 movies that were afraid to announce that they were movie musicals. You have Mean Girls and Joker 2. Both movies that in all of their advertising, nobody opens their mouth and sings. Nobody!
Even Wicked was doing that at the start.
Yeah. And you're like, guys, are you just gonna...
And Wonka did the same thing.
People are going to walk in and be like, what? Like, why do you want that? Why don't you want people to know it's a musical? Like, why do we want to trick people to go into the theaters instead of just telling them what it is and then liking it?
Because, Frank, so far, it's worked.
I know, it's stupid.
Because there's always this stigma for the general public towards musicals. Even though...
People love them.
People love them.
Same people who say I hate musicals, they're like, but I do love this one. And you're like, then shut the fuck up, you love musicals.
Usually a Disney one.
Yes, yeah.
For some reason they act like those don't count. Or even something like Wonka. It's just like, oh my god, Wonka's a musical? Like, the original Gene Wilder film is a musical.
You're like, Did those songs go over your head when they opened their mouths and started singing for several scenes?
And for that matter, the 1939 Wizard of Oz is a musical too.
Yes. I think it's funny because I think Wizard of Oz is genius, first off. I don't know if we've ever talked about that, but they do a genius thing where only Dorothy sings at the beginning when it's in the black and white. Only that realistic over the rainbow. Really. Yeah, sepia. But she's the only one holding these dreams up. And then when she goes into Oz, it's a dreamland, everyone sings. It's sort of a genius structure for a musical, because you're realistic singing and then into the fantasy world, instead of being just everyone just sings here.
You could almost interpret it as a musical theater nerd stuck in a small town with no one to relate to.
Yes, right.
Until they find their fellow freaks.
Go match my freak. But I do feel like this is a thing with musicals, is that they try to hide them, and then they come out hard being like, Wicked is at first they didn't, but then they came out being like, this is a musical and we're gonna have sing-along versions at Christmas, so come then. For everyone who wants to sing along, which we could talk about the people singing in the theaters all day.
No, let's.
Yeah, you want to talk about that? Because my thing is yes, okay, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Cynthia Erivo, you both said it would be fine to sing along in the theater or make noise, talk. Okay, don't. Have genuine reactions to movies. Please don't hold your reactions back, but don't talk or sing during a movie. Just don't. Unless it's set for that, the movie sing along, just don't do it.
When I had seen that clip of the encouragement for that, I'm like, no.
Yeah, absolutely
Shut
not.
The fuck up.
Absolutely not. Yes, react to the movie. Yes, when you go to see a horror movie,
obviously
don't go
with it.
When you see something, go and then turn to your friend and go, that was crazy. Yes, that's a very normal thing to do, but not singing along to a movie that somebody may have not seen already, and now you are singing
because
over
this will be most of the general public's like access to this.
Yes.
To the story, to this musical.
And I would say people are like, well, you sing along at concerts. And you're like,
this
that's
isn't a concert.
Different. That's completely different. You are joining in concert with a live person and you are singing together. It's a moment between you and the artist. That is not happening with the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The movie's playing on the screen.
I even saw comparisons where it's just like, well, no one complains when all the fucking Marvel nerds cream their pants and clap every 5 minutes when an MCU movie comes out. Just like, again, that's just general engagement with a movie. Yes, they're clapping because they're excited about the scene. No one's fucking breaking out into song. It's a different thing. Like, and it's one of those things where, like, I came here to see the two leads sing. I didn't come to hear your failed dreams live.
Yes, exactly. I do want to say that too. Is that like, yes, sing along with your favorite musicals. Just don't do it out in public.
I mean, I think it helps that I wasn't necessarily worried about it, but I'd gone to see this at the Alamo Drafthouse specifically at like a later screening that wasn't kid friendly.
Yeah,
just to avoid that. God, I love the Alamo Drafthouse for that.
My showing was pretty good. There was some girls singing behind us, but some people shushed them, so they stopped. But it was only during Defying Gravity that they like. And I get it. You gotta get swept up.
I think
I get it. Like,
but I'm also seeing it in Boston, and Bostonians are cold, man.
Yeah.
So like, there ain't no way. If the moment someone would have piped up, they would have got shut down really quick. Would have got a fucking Guinness thrown at their head.
But I do want to say I got a big laugh in the theater because the minute Jeff Goldblum's head came out, and his big giant gold head came out, I started uncontrollably laughing. Like, I could not handle myself, and everyone else started laughing because I just started laughing. To me, it was so funny. Just the curtains are there, and I'm expecting the big, like, floating head, but then a giant golden Jeff Goldblum comes through, and he's like, hello, dears. And I just started laughing so much, and everyone else around me was just like, what? And then just started laughing too. And I was just like, that's incredible. I was like, that's why Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard was perfect casting. I feel like they did such a good job there. You're like, yeah,
it's also nice to see like Goldblum play like a con man type, where he's just like charming on the outside, but like deep inside is like pretty malevolent.
Yes. And I do love, I mean, to like kind of bring it back to the plot of that's the thing about Wicked that's great, is like it kind of digs into the little things that the Wizard of Oz had, you know, like they're like, you're like in the Wizard of Oz, you're like, oh, there's animals running around and talking, and you're like, but why is there not, like, you know, like, why is it not normal? Like, you know, like, why is there only one, you know, like, and then like, you know, like they're talking about the wizard and how he just lied to these people to like get control of their city. And you're like, in the movie and in the book, it's so like played off as like, haha, isn't that funny? And then like
I made everyone wear green glasses so they would visualize the Emerald City as opposed to it actually being green.
Yeah, and you're like, what the, like, you know, and it's kind of like it's one of those things that they just sorry, I've lost the track there, but like they dive into how much of a con man he is and how he's basically colonizing Oz, you know, like he's not just showing up and being like, I know these things and I can help you guys. He's like, no, I'm taking charge and I'm gonna like turn the world to work for me, you know, like he's a con man. Like this is like, and it's like, it's one of those things that like it's not even explored in the Wizard of Oz, and it's like to go that much further in Wicked is great. And I love all the little allusions to the next part and Wizard of Oz in this movie. Also, I think that's what a lot of people love about this, is that, you know, you get Dorothy and all of them at the beginning when they're showing them through the flying shot. So you're like, okay, they're established, they're in this. And then you have, so guys, I guess we can say spoilers. I mean, I already talked about Jeff Goldblum's.
We're also like a month later than everyone else talking about Wicked.
But I'm talking part 2, which yes. Should I even say, like, will this fuck with you? Like, because
I guess we should just be vague about part 2.
Yeah, we'll be vague about part 2.
Familiar.
Yeah, because I don't want to spoil that for anybody who might not. So I'll hold back. But there's lots of little allusions to who the characters in this story are in the Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
So I love those moments. All these tiny little things that you're like, John M. Chu, you're pretty good. Like, you're like, yeah, you're pretty good at this, my man.
And
like,
it is, just from a visual perspective, interesting seeing the marriage of, like, what the musical was, but also what the cultural zeitgeist associated with that original 1939 film is, and marrying the two. Because, like, just as a small example, like, Glinda's dress at the beginning, like at No One Mourns the Wicked, it's a blue dress. But here, it's got to be pink because everyone associates that pink dress with Glinda the Good Witch because of that original film. It's the same thing with, like, the shoes were silver in the book. They were ruby in the movie. And that movie's too iconic for you not to do that.
Yeah, but they do the silver slippers here. They do do that. And I wonder if they'll change them to the ruby or they'll just stick with it. I forget at listening and knowing the plot, but I forget what they do. But but just to bring it back to more of the casting of everything, because I was saying that Ariana Grande is fantastic in this, and I think that Cynthia say it again, Erivo is absolutely fantastic in this. I don't know. I was, you're always scared that's not Idina Menzel. Like, it's one of those things where, like, as a longtime fan, you're like, well, that's not Idina. Like, you're like, what are you up to? But then that she's fantastic in this. I think they're such a good pair that they instantly become this generation's Glinda and Elphaba, like, instantly. And that's what's I keep saying it. That's what's important about this movie, is that this is the version people will know other than, like, the history books,
like, which is why it's important to, get that right when adapting. Otherwise you might end up with, let's say, The Wiz
or Dragon Ball Evolution.
Like, I finally I was just sticking to musicals, but sure.
But yeah, you're like, but think about it. Like, some Westerners, that's the only thing they've ever seen, and that's it.
Well, the benefit of Dragon Ball Evolution is that it's such a generic movie that everyone forgets. Like, I forget that. I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan. I forget that movie exists until someone brings it up. The best thing about it is how forgettable it was.
Yes.
Very easy to just put that away. That doesn't hold any space in my head.
Sorry, that's really fucking funny to me. You're just like, no, I just completely don't even think about it.
Again, because we never want to do a pro shot, because the industry fears that if someone sees a pro shot of something, they won't want to see it live, which is bullshit.
There's definitely rumors that there's, like, original cast Wicked pro shot. Like,
yeah, of course. Same thing.
They're sitting somewhere.
It's so annoying because it's just like, oh, I listened to this album from my favorite band. I would never want to see them live because I've already heard them. Just like, no, of course you're going to want to see it live. It's a different experience.
It's so stupid because right now, like I said earlier, this movie's so popular that I guarantee there's going to be Wickeds at every major, like, that, Broadway touring thing that can have it.
And it might actually, it might even, like, light a fire under them to be like, okay, we'll give you a pro shot because that's just easy revenue.
Right? It's just easy money.
That's what I've been crossing my fingers with Beetlejuice about. It's just like, oh, Beetlejuice does well.
Yeah, right.
Just so the fucking tour of the musical can keep going and maybe come back to the Boston area. Or maybe we can finally get that pro shot they had meant to do.
Seriously. I would love that.
But yeah, it becomes like the only version that you get, and if you represent it poorly, then it might be the only accessible version you watch. Like, for example, as a direct comparison, The Wiz movie, not very good. I've heard the actual show The Wiz is not bad. The movie's not great.
Yeah, I feel like the movie kind of trips over its own feet, but the musical itself is just a good time, like it's like, that's the thing, is it's just like you're not as flabbergasted by all, like, the celebrity and the weird designs and the Wiz. Like, you're just kind of like, oh, fun, when it's on stage, it's a good time.
Or sometimes things just don't translate. Like, I've brought up, like, me not being the biggest fan of like the Matthew Broderick, Nathan Lane version of The Producers.
Yes.
Just because I feel like it's a very like flat, direct adaptation where it stops like the musical for a crowd that doesn't exist in movie form, and it's so awkward.
Yes, I do agree that happens. But yeah, I do enjoy that because it's Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, though. It's like, I do. That's the reason why I like that version. I'm like, okay, those guys are good together, like.
And another big caveat that we haven't brought up yet, at least pertaining to this as a worry, was the idea that like, all right, you're splitting the movie into 2 parts, and it makes sense, Act 1 and Act 2. But the fact that, like,
we
just
haven't even brought up the main concern. That's what everybody talked to me.
Yeah.
Like, even our buddy Eddie we were talking about it, Eddie McCade, and he was like, why are they doing 2 parts? And I'm just like, I feel you, because this is...
the runtime of this on its own is longer than the actual stage production.
It's longer than the actual play. It's longer. Like, so that scared me. That scared me big time, because I was like, so they're making new content, like they're making new things. Like,
and one of the things I hear about Wicked as a show is that the second half isn't as strong as the first half.
And it's not only not as strong, it's also dark. Like, it is the fall of Alphaba and all of Oz into basically like, Dorothy coming in, like...
You can split it, but you might bite yourself in the ass later looking at It movies, which was my concern even when that first movie came out. Just like, oh, you're gonna split the child section and the adult section. The adult section in the book is not as interesting. You're gonna...
Which, like, it's like one of those things that part 2 isn't terrible for it, but it is a lot of it forgettable.
Yeah,
like,
I haven't,
like a lot of it I don't remember other than the final scene.
I've softened a bit on it chapter 2 for what it is, but it is very flawed. Yes. So it basically has the same problem. Well, it's a different problem, because basically they were taking a B plot in it and just made it chapter 2, and you're like, shouldn't have done that, guys. I wouldn't necessarily call it a B plot. Like, the adult stuff is as important, but it's just not as compelling as the child sections.
No, it's just not. Well, that's why I call it the B plot. Because, like, yes, it's the same characters and they've grown up, but, like, when they keep flashing back to the kids, you're like, we're back!
Even with the, like, original miniseries, people mostly remembered the good stuff, which is the stuff with the kids, and they kind of blank out the adult section. It's just like, oh yeah, the stupid rubber spider thing. I forgot about that.
I forgot about that.
When they talk about how much the movie traumatized them as a kid, or miniseries, rather.
Yes, exactly.
But what we do
this is
here is that we, runtime-wise, I feel like we actually fill the time well, because it's mostly character work.
Yes.
Because there's stuff you can't get away with. There's a difference in suspension of disbelief between stage and a film.
Yes.
You accept a lot more on the stage because it's an abstraction. So you're willing to buy a lot more. And one of the things I also hear is like a criticism of Wicked is that the actual like turn, as it were, at the end of Act 1 feels like it's there because, we have to have that turn. We have to make her wicked. And what the movie does here feels like there's probably a better build up to that because of the stuff we like add in between character wise.
Yes. And we kind of see her like being radicalized, like I feel like they build that up a little bit more, like it's because it's like you get more of the relationship with the teacher, like you get her, like, and it's like, and I feel like that I feel like they did all this extra that they added to this part 1. I like, it's so good that I wasn't sitting there being like, this doesn't belong. This isn't in the play. Like I was literally just like, great, perfect, awesome.
Yeah, it seemed like it just understood the idea of like, oh, we're in a different medium, so we need to use that to our advantage. Yes. We need to fill things out.
So I meant to bring up like, and I think that's very important with this added stuff is, and it's kind of been this big joke about this movie, is that Cynthia and Ariana have been just like crying the whole
every fucking interview.
But the thing is, I feel it. I understand it, because it's literally they got their dream role. Like the thing they've been thinking about since they were kids. Literally, Ariana Grande has a story where she went to Kristen Chenoweth as a 10-year-old and said, I'm going to play Glinda one day. Is that not the craziest fucking shit you've ever heard?
Yeah.
That she like manifested that?
Yeah.
You're like, holy fuck.
And plus, like, they're two theater dorks. Of
Yes.
course, they're emotional. And God, I'm trying to bring this up in a way that doesn't just dunk on Cynthia Erivo.
Because she's very nice. She's very nice, and I think she's very talented.
But given her in-proportionate response to that fan poster that had happened, I don't know if you knew about that. Let me explain it to people.
Yes, explain it to people, because it'll be years. Like, people will listen to this and they'll be like, "What are you talking about?" You know, like, so explain it.
So you can look up the original Wicked poster, as in the thing you would actually see at the actual musical show. It's also on the playbill. It's an image of Glinda like whispering to Elphaba, and Elphaba has like a smirk on her face.
Yes.
They replicated that original poster for this.
But they have Elphaba's eyes covered for it. That's the important part.
It's like shrouded.
You can just see her green, and it's all character. I love the poster.
Yeah, it's just a little it's a great little art piece. For the movie poster, her eyes are visible and she's not like smirking, and she doesn't have the red lipstick. So fans doing what fans do, they just made like a fan-made edit where they just made it closer to that original poster. So they like lowered the hat so it like shrouds her eyes. They gave her a smirk and they colored her lips red. Cynthia Erivo had a very
upset response. She basically said that it was racist because they were covering up her.
Yeah.
And to me, you're like, no, guys, you love this poster, Cynthia. Mm-hmm. Like, this is something you love also.
Yeah,
they just wanted to make it more like it.
Yeah,
you know,
it was
I don't
that simple. Like, it's not even in
this
any chance like that deep.
No, and it's not even. I know some people were pointing it to like, you know, the gamers editing the girl from she's fighting the robot dinosaurs.
Oh, Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah, and they like edited her,
yassify all these like female characters,
and like
not the same thing.
Not the same thing. That's not what's happening here. And I think Cynthia took it as that.
Yeah,
and that's not what it was. Yeah. Because
if they were trying to Caucasian her up,
yes,
like
that would be something.
As in change like her actual facial features.
That would be like, holy fuck.
All they do is they edit the lips so it has like a smirk on one side. They color it red to look more like the poster, and they bring the cap down so it shrouds over the eyes.
Right.
Nothing's changed about the actual like
still her face. Yes. Like, you know, like I don't like I wasn't mad about it. I thought it was cool, you know, and then she's like freaked out.
It's just like, we need these types of reactions for things that are actually a problem.
Yes, exactly.
Because especially as far as like AI generated images are concerned, this shit is getting weird. I don't know if you've seen the ads lately. I keep seeing ads. I don't know why like social media thinks I'm this desperate, but you keep seeing like these apps where it's just like, oh, you can kiss your celebrity crush by uploading a picture of yourself and a celebrity, and we'll make them kiss. You're just like, oh, this is going to be a lawsuit.
Well, yes. Well, yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, we've already reached that. Even the platform we're recording on right now, after we record an episode, you can basically make it say anything we want just by typing it out from the data of like, yeah, you could do that with like a 10-second clip. But like literally we're recording hours longs of podcasts. Like the amount, like it's kind of scary to me about my digital footprint, about how much of my voice is out there that you could just clip it, like maybe even a 20-minute clip, pop it into an AI and make it say whatever you want. Like I made it say something crazy. Yeah. And I was like, damn.
Even early on, we were
and
just
it sounded right. It sounded like me.
Early on, where things were like, oh, this is very obviously like AI voice. It sounds kind of rough. My immediate thought, even just a few years ago, because this is already advancing so fast, was just like,
voice actors are fucked. Yes.
Political propaganda.
Yeah. It's the obvious ones, but I also worry for voice actors because you know, like there's a difference between in the new Lord of the Rings movie, they use old Christopher Lee clips to make him appear as Sauron in this movie.
Saruman.
I'm okay with that. Saruman. I'm okay with that because they're using old clips. But there's the flip side of like, we can just use those old clips and make them say whatever we want using AI. And that's where it scares me, where all of a sudden we're replacing real workers. And I mean, I'm not ratting on my work, but like recently we had a gig, and we had to have somebody voice, and like, next up is blank blank blank, and they're going to be giving away the blank ward. We originally had a voice actor lined up, and somebody was like, no, we could just use AI, and we did it, and it sounds fine. Like, it's fine. And that's the thing, is it's those little bits of erosion that are going to take some real talent away. Like, I felt really weird about this, because I was like, I don't like that, because first off, it should just
Like,
be
that's
a real
just
person.
a small gig, but
Yeah.
there's not much of a leap between that and just like, what do we need to hire a voice actor
Right.
for?
And that's the thing about the AI in animation, is I feel like we're going to get to a point where they're just going to be like, oh, no, I'm a single person, and I'm going to use AI to generate something that was not possible before without a giant team.
And usually under the veil of just like, well, I don't have the resources that a big team would.
And then using voice actors that aren't real or are real people, and just like generating it. Like, this is a very slippery slope to you've been replaced to work in this industry. Like, I think that it's so fast.
Yeah, and you
because all it takes is a little gig where we save money, like this, like, where we're like, oh, we saved some money, like, and then it just becomes standard.
You also miss out on, like,
for commercials,
success
and that
stories.
happens for other things. And it's just like, all of a sudden, nobody can be a voice actor anymore, because there's so little jobs in the industry, because AI has taken it all.
Yeah.
Like, and
you
just
also,
like, that's fucked.
You also miss out on like nice success stories. Like, we had talked about this when we reviewed Dr. Sleep. That was just like, what was kind of refreshing about Dr. Sleep? That they didn't go like the deepfake route and just had like a de-age like Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson, and that we just hired actors to play them, and it worked. It's just like, oh yeah, this is just what we used to do, and it's kind of refreshing. Or you don't get stories like, oh, he's like the Chad Vader guy.
Yeah.
Who used to make old like Darth Vader like skits on YouTube, and then became the official voice double for Darth Vader in like video games and stuff.
Right. It's like,
but
that's
now,
because they could just
Obi-Wan
take a clip.
Post Obi-Wan Kenobi, now we're just because Obi-Wan Kenobi just used AI for his voice to make him sound younger.
I don't love it. It's one of those things where right now we're like, oh yeah, I can enhance these things, I could do these things.
One, it's a shame, and plus it also kind of takes away from James Earl Jones's like aged voice was actually kind of nice. Like, I actually love the way Vader sounds in Rebels.
Yeah.
The fact that like James Earl Jones is a lot older, and he has like a lot of like season to his voice. It's actually kind of nice. It's different.
Right. I like it.
And but the problem is there's already enough like ageism in the voice acting industry, especially in the West.
Yes. And I feel like it's one of those things where they first come for the it's that joke where they first came for the voice actors, and I said nothing, like, and then they came for it's literally that, though, is like, if we do not, and I mean, this is totally different tangent, but if we do not have like a safety net for the work that AI is going to take away, we're going to have a problem. Like, I know Star Trek said that the Irish unification riots were supposed to be last year. Could happen this year. Star Trek isn't wrong usually. But like this, this was supposed to be 2024. And I was
separate tangent.
Separate
back
tangent.
to Wicked.
Back to Wicked. Off the AI. But with that, talking about real versus AI, one of the best things about Wicked is how much the sets were real. In a world where they're like, Mandalorian will just use a volumetric screen, Wicked planted 8 million poppy seeds. 8 million to make one field for like several shots. Like, the train shot, them skipping through, and that's it. And they were like, no, we're not going to CGI that. We're going to go plant some fucking plants. And you're just like, holy shit. Like, I was impressed.
The problem with it, because I do think this film looks overall good, but it is still very digital looking.
Mm.
And my problem is, like, as much as I appreciate the attention to detail and like the sets and stuff, everything is so saturated that
So
you can mistake it for CGI anyway.
yes, that's true. I do feel like that happens a bit. I have a different reaction to it. I think they desaturated some images. I think you can look at the images and you
Yeah,
can
that's what I mean.
tell that
You
they
can look at,
color
like,
corrected it down to
yes, that's
desaturate
what I
it.
mean. Desaturates.
Is desat sorry,
Yeah.
and it made it, yeah, it makes it look fake instead of poppingly real.
Mhm.
You know, like Willy Wonka, or even better yet, Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
You know, like it's where everything looks real because it is, except for the painting in the background, and we all know that doesn't look real, but you know, it's kind of nice. Like
And it's one of those things where, because I've heard John M. Chu talk about this, where he's just like, well, I just wanted to like add that bit of realism to make Oz feel real. It's just like, okay, I understand that conceit,
Yeah.
but this is a movie about like witches and flying monkeys and talking goats.
Yeah, but
You don't need to be afraid about the lack of realism, and it's also just.
But my thing is that actors will act better in a real environment, of course.
Yes.
If they have, like, yes, you can say like acting with a digital actor is always going to be hard, but acting in a digital set is also hard because you get no vibe from the things around you. You do not know how.
No tell, nothing to bounce off of.
Yeah, your vibe is whatever you're bringing to it instead of what the surroundings are. And like, so that's why I think it was important to build shiz, and it's important to build real sets.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, you know, like have that feeling, you know, because actors are nervous on set. And if you're not able to relax them in some way, you know, and especially for these two who are doing their dream roles, you got to relax them in some way.
But also,
and I feel like maybe this was
and
some
this
way
isn't
of doing that.
This movie's fault. This is just like modern blockbuster stuff. Stop it with the motivated lighting.
What do you mean? Just like, what do you mean by that though?
The idea that like every like lighting source in a given scene has to have sort of like a realistic source.
Yes,
where it's coming from a specific place, which I've noticed just more and more with this, more particularly blockbuster filmmaking as we go along, where it's just like, guys, some of the best cinematography you can get doesn't really have like a realistic like fixture point. It's just cool lighting because it looks great. Not everything has to have like a realistic source. Even games have this problem now.
Well, yes, and okay, so I don't think it's the motivated lighting that's the problem, because motivated lighting is important because it adds realism. What's the problem is not dynamic lighting. So, and I think we sent this meme to each other the other day where they showed shots of Madame Web and how detailed the lighting, how there's a foreground, a background, the characters are lit, there's lights in the background. It's so textured, the lighting, which I hate to say for Madame Web. You're like, what cinematographer was working on this? You're like, hot damn, like, because they were cooking. And then you look at like Spider-Man, No Way Home, not No Way Home. What's the
latest one?
Latest one.
Yeah, No Way Home.
No Way Home. Sorry, No Way Home. And how flat it is.
Yes.
You know, like how it is the image. You know, like it's them. There's background, but that's not dynamic in any way. It's just is, you know, like the most dynamic they get is on the Statue of Liberty at the end. And then at least there's something happening there, you know, like there's, you know, like there's some lights in the background of the statue and like there's something going on. But most of the movie is very flat sunlight lighting and not very dramatic or cool looking at all. And
it's got that TV / like low budget comedy or even mid budget like comedy look where everything is so stale, which only really kind of came about in the aughts.
Yes, and it's really, I attribute it to the easiness of shooting video.
Yeah,
is because you're not working with a fully professional team that has grown up and been like, okay, so we have to have some lighting back there, we have to have some lighting back
film
here,
is temperamental, so we need to be very specific about the light.
yes. But not only that, but like filling the image with light, and then taking it away to add dramaticness is something that I think a lot of young filmmakers don't think about enough anyways. And I think that because of the easiness of digital, you just shoot, like instead of being like, well, we need to make sure this is lit, but we also want to, our subject is lit, but we also want to make sure you can see the background, like, and we got to make that cool looking too, like that's the way old filmmaking used to work, instead of just being like, all right, it looks real nice, go, because it does look nice right off the bat, but you need to get that cinematic look. It takes different lighting, like even my background now, not super cinematic because it's just a single light from this window, and then I have my light lighting me and my light lighting my room. So I don't have like a cinematic other than this light here. I need something more motivated behind me. I need to light these, like there's an idea to thematic lighting that they are just not implementing in movies
there's also
anymore.
there's also the technical know-how about it. Think about how many times we hear complaints about like an image being too dark now.
Yes.
For movies and TV shows.
All the time.
Same thing, that and sound. I hear complaints about those two things all the time.
Yes. And I mean, I love those arguments because it's people who don't know movies saying something that's very specific to a movie. Like when they're talking about the sound, they're talking about mastering. And a lot of people don't master their movies anymore. They don't bring in a guy to make sure that it all sounds good the whole time. Like they just edit their scenes and they place it together, not thinking like, does this all flow right? Like that's the importance of having somebody
and if we're
to
talking
do that
specifically at home.
You get the commercials which aren't mixed with the other stuff.
Yeah. But there's also the advent of like, hey guys, when you make a TV screen flat, you also have to shrink the speakers. Your default speakers on your fancy flat screen TV is not going to be very good. You might need a separate sound system.
That is very true. A lot of people are spending their money on these big TVs because they're getting cheaper and cheaper, but they don't ever buy a sound system. Guys, if you're sitting at home right now without a sound bar or boxes next to your, like if you're not using something else other than your TV speakers, you're probably missing a lot. Even if they brag it's got stereo, even if they're bragging, you're talking about getting sound from a single source that is confining most of its sound to the bottom of it. It doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't go to a concert and see all the speakers facing you, or like all the speakers on the ground facing you. Like that's not, you can see when you go to a concert, they're above you, they're on the sides. It's like, yes, because you have to fill a room, like if you're not filling the room, the sound's not doing it.
Yeah.
Like
so it's not even necessarily the project's fault that you can't hear anything, and you either have to like crank that volume up or watch everything with subtitles, which I know plenty of people who do that. But I do wonder, like the cynical side of me is just like, okay, but how much of you don't know how sound works and just never bought a system for your TV? And also how much of that is just you guys never wanting to pay attention?
Yeah, I do feel that. In our house, we're okay with subtitles unless it's a horror or a comedy, because both of those are there's timed moments.
Yes,
and the subtitles will fuck them up. Like jokes and scare moments are timed moments,
especially if the subtitles are descriptive.
They'll fuck them up. Like it's just kind of. I mean, sometimes subtitles can be really funny during a horror movie. Like, they're like, it goes silent. You're like, okay. Like, it's one of those moments where you're like, okay, thanks you for telling me it's silent.
The last season of Stranger Things with subtitles, because it was with a group. And the person who was streaming it for us, like, put on subtitles. And I kept getting a good laugh because it was descriptive subtitles that would describe, like, sounds and stuff. And every time it would cut to a clock, for Vecna's like sinister clock chongs, it would always be like in brackets chimes, sinister chimes.
my favorite was, and you would be so angry, Deshaun. So on Thanksgiving we always watch Godfather at my mom's house. We decided Godfather 2 this time.
Yeah.
So during the the flashback scenes with young
Vito.
young Vito and De Niro, whenever they spoke Italian, the movie put real subtitles on the bottom for what it said, but the subtitles put speaks Italian over the real subtitles, so I couldn't read them. I was like, are you fucking with me, Amazon? What the fuck is this? Like, stop saying speaks Italian. I fucking get it. Everyone gets it, or could just read the subtitles.
I ran into something similar like that. There was a documentary a couple of months ago that was about Dario Argento.
Oh, cool.
And this, for whatever it was, there was something really fucked up about the subtitles because they were like hard-coded into it, but also you couldn't toggle it off on the actual like Amazon like settings, so it would double up and you couldn't change it.
Oh my god, that's shitty. That's so shitty. You're like, come on, guys. Like, what is this? Like, this isn't accessibility, which is really the problem, right? If subtitles are fucked up and I'm not an actual deaf person and I don't understand what I'm reading, like, you fucked up, like, you're not helping anybody. You're just putting subtitles there because you have to help people, like, actually help people. Think about it. But we're getting so sidetracked.
Yeah,
like we keep getting sidetracked here.
That's what happens when we don't record for a while.
Yes, but I do think what were we talking about before we started going into the mixing, though? We were talking about like
desaturation, the technical side,
so
lighting, etc.
I do feel like they desaturated this this a little bit, so much so that like there was moments where I was like, that color doesn't look right, like that would be my only big complaint about this movie, is that it's weirdly desaturated, and I kind of just want,
which would make more sense for the second
version
half when we actually get like to the darker section. But you can literally see like set photos of like, oh, here's like the train station. You can see the set photo of that, and it's bright and it's beautiful, and the train really pops with all that green, and even the floor is reflective. And then you compare it to the movie, and everything's just kind of washed out. You're like, what the fuck?
What the fuck? I have a little bit of a feeling that they'll like put out the DVD version, and it will just be a different, Blu-ray version. It'll just be a different color. Like they'll color correct it again. Like, because I feel like I feel like there is significant feedback on that, like a lot of people are saying, why are you desaturating this, like, and it really is just, there's a guy who color corrects, it's his job. And I think he was doing something to make the image look a certain way, but it leads to a lot of desaturation that doesn't make it look good. And at the behest
of the director, because again, she was mentioned that like it was intentional because he wanted to make Oz feel realistic, which I get just for like suspension of disbelief purposes and like really having someone invest in the world. But again, this is a movie with witches and talking monkeys and goats.
Yeah, but not only that, like what brought me out of it, which like kind of cracked me up, it is the High School Musicalness of the age of everybody. Because I know this is supposed to be college, but like even Bowen Yang being there, you're like, he's a 30-something-year-old man. Like, what are we doing? Like even Bach, the guy who plays Bach, you're like, that man's old. Like maybe I'm old now and I can see when a man is old, but I'm like, these are not college age kids.
Come
like,
on,
what the fuck
Frank,
are we talking about?
We had 30-year-olds going to college. We had older than 30-year-olds who were like our classmates. College is open. It's not high school.
Yes, I mean, college is open. But I I was just kind of like, what the hell is going on here? They're all acting like young, like they're high schoolers, but they like, like they're all.
But that, I mean, to be fair, that's just old school. That's not just High School Music. That's just how we used to do like high school age kids. Yeah, it was just like, they're fucking mid to late 20s, like trying to act like 15-year-olds.
Likes to bring up Michael C. Hall in Dexter, just putting on the wig, and they're like, you're like, yes, young Dexter, and you're like, like but I do stand by they shouldn't have recast him in the new show. They should have just put that wig back on him and sent him back out. Like, just, we're like, go play your 15-year-old selves. Like, and I was like, because I bought it during the show. Why wouldn't I buy it now? You know, like,
the show was so long ago now. We're old. Michael C. Hall's even older than he was.
It's true. But I think that would make it even funnier. But I know they're trying to be serious. But I'm like, come on, that would be great. They recast everyone for that show. I'm kind of interested to see that. But I didn't even watch the revival of Dexter.
I did. I liked it.
Yeah?
It was, I mean, it helped that it was the original showrunner who did the first 4 seasons, which is when the show was good.
Yeah, it's so true.
And I don't even hate, like, all the seasons after that. Like, I think they're varying. Like, some are good, some are the final season is fucking garbage.
Mm-hmm.
So, it felt like, well, it couldn't be a full, like, apology. It's still just like, well, this still ends on a better note than we did last time.
Yes.
The only problem is they're already walking back on that, too.
Yes, because they're somehow gonna explain why he's able to narrate, you know, like this show, you know, like, even though he's supposed to be gone,
yeah,
you know, at the end of the revival.
Spoiler alert, because that season's been out for like a couple years now.
Yeah,
like, Dexter dies at the end of that. Like, we actually finally kill him off, which is how the show should have always ended.
Yeah, because he's a villain.
But now,
you know,
we have,
can't just live.
But now I guess that
after.
did well enough that we got to do a prequel origin, like, spin-off, and we want to do a sequel series which is literally called Dexter Resurrections. I'm like, God damn it. Even when you
like,
came back to make
Michael Myers, like, he's fucking Michael Myers, like, just resurrected.
Oh man, that was always the logical next step.
Oh my God.
We have to venture from, like, true crime, like serial killer stuff, to straight up slasher movie villain. It was always heading this way. We got to fucking Jason Voorhees him. He's got to go through his zombie phase. Now he's not going to run. He's just going to walk slowly and somehow catch up to you.
Oh, man. I'd fucking watch that. But I'd watch one movie of that. One. That's it.
But yeah, I mean, that's just a suspension. I think it's easier, though, the fact that this is supposed to be like college age.
That was my one, like, what the fuck is happening here? Was like, I was kind of like, everyone's kind of old in this movie. Like, I was kind of like, huh? Like, I was like, everyone's kind of old. Like, I'm glad they shot this movie at the same time. So, you know, like, this whole thing.
Yeah, imagine how much more awkward it would have been if we actually did have Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth.
Yeah, right? You're just
like even 10 years ago, they were too old for this.
I know. It's like, and that's what they were saying at the time. You know, like, they were like, oh, they're too old. I'm like, they're playing it on Broadway now. What do you mean they're too old?
Yeah, like, that's the stage. That's suspension, the disbelief thing. It's like when they did the Rent movie.
Yes.
Which was original Broadway cast, but everyone was like 10 years older. So it's just like, what are these?
Speaking of Idina Menzel. Like,
yeah, exactly. Just like these kids are not early college kids anymore. This is weird.
I didn't realize, I know this is another spinoff, but I didn't realize that, like, people didn't like the Rent movie.
I don't.
I grew up liking it a lot. And, like, and I was a big Rent guy. And yes, I understand.
I don't like the conceit of Rent in general, but I really don't like the movie.
I feel like there's some things about it that you're like, but like the movie, I always loved it. And yes, there was some changes to the musical that I was kind of like, but
in fact, it's actually a testament to how good Tick Tick Boom is, because I don't like Rent and I think that movie's great.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I'll have to check out Tick Tick Boom. I've been excited to watch that. But you know, the Oscars are getting announced tomorrow, so I got some other movies I have to get to at that point when they get announced, which I'm sure this episode will come out after that. But
and obviously we're singing this movie's praises. You and I both liked it.
Yeah.
Variety put out I think it was Variety put out an article about just like, here's why Wicked will probably be the best picture contender. I'm like, dude, Dune Part 2 came out this year. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Like maybe it'll get the nomination. I wouldn't be surprised if
there's
it did,
many other movies.
Fucking way.
I do think it could win some awards. I literally walked out of the theater and said, this could win some awards. Like, this is not.
But Best Picture? No.
Sorry. Yeah,
guys,
like
the
you're
best,
too much of a theater nerd if you think this is winning.
The best you'll get is they're for sure gonna fucking have Cynthia Erivo do Defying Gravity live. That's
absolutely.
for sure gonna happen.
For sure. Like, it's for sure. We did Idina Menzel singing Elsa. Like, we're absolutely bringing in Cynthia to sing Defying Gravity. Absolutely. And I'm excited to see, you know, because I think it can, and I think they could win some awards. I don't think it's going to win. No, there's no way Best Picture. That's fucking insane. I need the short list. They put out the Oscar short list, but that would be another fucking. Sorry,
yeah, that would be another.
We'll get distracted. We'll get distracted. But
I do, like, cast wise,
think it's that good. I do think that this movie could win some awards. It's that good. Best Picture good? No, but that's because there's
stranger things have happened before. We have had movies like Crash happen.
Yeah, but
we had Driving Miss Daisy do the right thing. Sometimes we just make mistakes.
Yeah, it's true. Even what's the one? The Green Book, the Viggo Mortensen one.
Yeah, which is basically just Driving Miss Daisy in reverse.
Yes, which, like, I've seen. Okay,
that's why Spike Lee was so fucking upset.
I haven't seen the movie. But I've seen, for some reason, YouTube Shorts thinks I will like the movie because they give me clips all the time. So I've seen tons of clips. It looks like a powerful movie. Does it look like it should have won Best Picture? Fuck no. Like what the fuck are we talking about? Yes, they're both great in those roles. Should that movie win Best Picture? Absolutely not. Like what the fuck are we talking about? But that's what we're saying. Stranger things have happened. Wicked could take it.
Was there anything that you walked away from this, like, not being crazy about?
So there's one scene that I'm not super crazy about, and I can't tell you if it was in the original musical because I've never seen the original musical, is the dance scene in the dance hall. When she's doing the unique moves and everyone's silent. And so, okay, I know this scene is not for me. That's the thing I got from that scene. I'm like, because as a dude, I'm like, okay, they had a dance scene together, but I went to the movie with all ladies. Everyone around me was bawling. So I'm like, okay, this was a connection scene that as a dude I don't fully get. But I can put my empathy fucking hat on and be like, as a woman, she put herself out there. She did this dance, and Glinda caught her and lifted her up, and they had this great friend moment. And I get that that's what the scene is, but for me, I was kind of like, that was a little strange. I was like, that was
my thing. Is it goes on too long?
Yes, I think it could have been a little shorter, too. I feel like it was just a little bit of an awkward scene.
I think that bit's in the musical. It seems like it wouldn't.
It doesn't seem like it is. Because I know the Oz Dust scene happens. I just don't remember what happened in the Oz Dust scene in the original. So please, guys, comment down below what the fuck I'm missing here, if that's an added scene or not. But even if it's not, it's a scene I couldn't connect with, but I understand why people connect with it. I saw people talking about online saying how important that scene was to them. And I also see the so I feel like, that the big joke is people have been holding space for Defying Gravity's, lyrics. But this is a gay movie. This is a fucking gay movie. Now in the most, I'm not saying it's stupid. I'm saying literally girls kissing, guys kissing. This movie's gay. And yes, they play it off as friends, but that's obviously what's the real story behind this story is best friends who are really close, who holding each other really high, being kind of in love with each other.
It is kind of undermined by it is kind of undermined by the love triangle with them, not necessarily fighting over a dude, but not that either.
Mm-hmm. And I think they did that at the time because that was the time. But I do feel like, if they could, there's
totally a queer reading you could get from this.
Oh my god, Unlimited, literally the line singing in Defying Gravity, unlimited, together we're unlimited, you know, like
Yeah.
you're like, come on, that's just talking about gay sex, are we not? Like, what are we fucking talking about here? Like,
It's certainly up for interpretation, but that's also
but
how things change
yes,
and become reevaluated.
yes, but I do think that I think that there's a couple things with Wicked and why it's so powerful is that it can be interpreted as a black story, as a gay story, you know, like it's like as just having a good girlfriend growing up that you might not be friends with anymore. Like I feel like that's the type of stories that this has always been saying it is, but like everyone's always like, yes, Wizard of Oz, you know, like instead of being like understanding the themes that they are saying here, you know, because this is a black story. So having Cynthia as the main character feels right to me. I like a lot of people were like crying Hollywood and woke, and you're just like, first off, shut the fuck up, and second off, you don't know what woke means. Third off, like that's what this story is, you know, like that's what it all like being green. What the fuck do you think that illusion was to?
Mm-hmm.
What you think that was to? Did you? It's guys. It's a literary alliteration, and it's this thin. It's this fucking thin.
Yeah,
like,
and it's also a matter of like, even if something isn't overtly like socio-political, there's also a matter of like when it comes out and what's of the time just by osmosis, whether it's intentional or not.
Yeah, and what
like,
people interpret from the art.
Yeah,
you know,
like the musical started in the Bush era.
Yeah. Right? Like
so there's like a reading there.
Right? Yes, because there's like the man in charge who's lying to you to create enemies, you know, like literally just like they made the wizard George W. Bush, and like but like in modern times we see it as maybe a Trump, you know, like as this big golden guy who's just lying to us. And I think that that's what's another great thing about this story, you know, like is that it keeps finding ways to be relevant and tell different
almost
stories to
stumbling
different audiences.
Into it.
Yeah, right. Like, but like, so my best friend, my good friend growing up, we worked together on these. Like he's gay, he's married. I'm not outing him. Like so, but like so like that. So he like even from the beginning, he's felt it was that type of story, and I've always interpreted it as that, and so. I think it's one of those things where you're just like, yes, you like people can get all like up in arms about things, but you're like, this is what this is about, man. This is what, you know, like you can be mad, but what the hell? This is what this is about.
It's like the fucking idiots who like see Patrick Bateman as like this like Sigma male archetype to look up to, based on a book written by a gay man and an adaptation which was written by a lesbian and directed by a woman, criticizing toxic masculinity.
Oh god.
Or in the same way that like, you know, these dickheads would be like, oh man, we've been red pilled. Well,
it's the same thing as like them talking about being in the Matrix or getting out of the Matrix.
That's what I just said.
You're saying red pill. Like you're like, guys, this was made by two trans
women.
You're like, damn. Like,
which now in modern context, like when you watch the first Matrix film, you can interpret that as a trans story.
Yeah, you're like, damn, I didn't like. It's one of those things where like, yeah, it really does come
like
across
as
that.
There.
Yeah, it's there. And it's like kind of like write what you know, and they definitely wrote what they knew in that, like, because that's what they mean when they say write what you know. They're not saying only write stories about your small town. They're saying incorporate your own life into it, so that way it can feel personal and touch, you know, like that's important. Like and I feel like Wicked does touch, and I'm saying about that scene is that like I didn't feel touched by it, you know, that dance scene. I didn't get it. Like I felt it went on a little long, but I know so many people that did, that felt that understood that felt like that was a big moment.
And plus it's there for like that visual motif. Like it's there. So when you have this later, you're like,
yeah, exactly.
I just think it goes on too long. And the way it's staged, while obviously the scene is supposed to be awkward and for us to like ease in my sensibilities, it almost loops around to being unintentionally comedic before it like comes back around again, just because it hangs on it a little too long at the beginning.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's kind of just like, it's one of those things. I don't know. It's also one of those things where you're like, you get to a point where you're like, these people have taken this bullying a bit too far, like where you're
Yeah.
just like, it's just like, so it's like, I feel like that they get it wasn't for me, but it worked for others, like we talked about with, to bring it back to another movie that was an unspoken scene that I felt was important, but other people were like, what the fuck, was Barbie looking around the world when she's sitting on the bench in the Barbie movie, and she's seeing all these wonderful things about real life and how people connect and like live together. And then she looks over at this woman and she says, you're beautiful. And she says, I know. And it's so like, even now I'm kind of like welled up, even like talking about it, which is so weird, like, cause it's such a nothing scene. But for somebody else, I've had other people talk about it and they're like, what the fuck? What was that? Like, I don't know what I was looking at. And I'm like, yo, just, hey, I got glasses on. You don't need them to fucking see what the fuck is happening here. But people don't. And, it might not work for me, but it worked for other people. So it's like, so that's, but I think they took a risk there and it either flew or it didn't for people.
Yeah.
And
I think like most of the time was spent to like actually buy the Elphaba and Glinda relationship.
Yeah.
Just because, like, again, going back to like me not having seen the musical either, but knowing like the criticisms of it is, again, that turn feels kind of like
yes,
there just because it needs to be there, and it kind of flip flops.
yes.
Where you get this like, it's just like, yeah, we're enemies and we're frenemies and now we're friends, but now your turn. Oh, whatever. I hope you're happy. You're just like, which is it with you two? This is ridiculous. Whereas like here, as it's presented, you're just like, okay, you can feel that like inherent tragedy about it.
Yes,
we're just like, no, we were always going to be on different paths.
Yes. So as just looking at the musical, as as like the songs and like looking at the new soundtrack, just like breaking it down, I do think Ariana kills it on No One Mourns the Wicked. I think she does a great job of like adding the sadness to that scene, like just, and that song in general. She's able to like bring the like, I've lost my best friend, into that No One Mourns the Wicked. And that's definitely a musical fan thing. If you don't know what the fuck she's doing in that scene, you're just like, Glinda's here telling the story of Elphaba, but if you know what's happening, you're kind of like, oh man, she's like, because Glinda goes higher when she's lying, and she's absolutely lying the whole song there.
Yeah,
where she's singing really loud. It's kind of wild.
It's her customer service voice.
I think Dear Old Shiz was good. Wizard and I used to be one of my favorites on the album, and I think they did a good job here, but I think the next song kind of overshadows the Wizard and I. When I listened to the musical as a kid, Wizard and I was like, hell yeah, like that's definitely better. But what is this feeling? They did something. They did something to the song. They did something in the musical. It's crack. Like I just want to watch that scene again and again. It's so good. And I feel like a lot of people have pointed that out, that like that this song went from being like fun, like it's a fun song, to being like, oh wow, this is the highlight of this. Like what is this feeling is so good. Like, and actually like a fantastic piece in this. And then Something Bad with Peter Dinklage, which, by the way, I spent the whole movie being like, I know the GOAT. I know who the voice actor of the GOAT is. Who's the GOAT?
It took me like
the credits played, and I was like, Dinklage. Like I was like, God damn it. Like,
I was trying to suss it out, like his first scene. I think I got it by the time he had like his second scene. I'm like, oh yeah, Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage.
It took me a sec to place it.
Then we have Dancing Through Life, which I gotta give credit. Like, it's not I don't think everyone's great dancing in that scene. I think Ariana's she's cute, but she's kind of like awkward. And I think that's the point. She's like not supposed to be into it yet, but
I think it helps that the perspective is like Fiyero, like teaching all these dorks to loosen up.
Right. I do like that. And I love the set, the rolling library.
The
It's
rotating library is
impressive.
sick.
It's just
It's
impressive.
impractical. It makes no
Yeah.
sense, but it's just so sick.
It's just
Just
so
so
sick.
cool.
It doesn't make any goddamn sense. I don't know what I would be finding in that library, but damn, is it cool. And then of course, I feel like the movie, like, of course, it sits on if Defying Gravity is great. Of course, the whole movie does. But
Yeah, and to be honest,
if Popular doesn't land, the whole movie doesn't fucking land.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
That's like foundational.
Like, it's Defying Gravity and Popular. You know, like those are the fucking songs. That's why everyone says Act 2 is not as popular. It's because you don't have songs like that. Like it's just not the same.
Like the big showstopper is Defying Gravity, but that marks the end of the first half. So you're just like, well, if that's supposed to be the big fan favorite song, then what are we doing in this?
What are we doing for the rest of the movie? But I do think Popular. I was into Ariana Grande doing this before I was watching the whole movie going, she's doing a good job. Like she's doing a good job. And of course I was like, what is this feeling? I was like, she's really killing it. And then Popular, I was like, okay, she's the new Glinda. She fucking did it. I was like,
it's
really
different. It's like a different flavor than what you would expect, like listening to Chenoweth, but it still works. It almost leans into like more of a Mean Girl thing.
Yes, and I think it works really well. Like instead of constant bubble, it's like there's a little Mean Girl in it, and I feel like it works. I also love the what were the right from Ariana Grande when they're talking about the all the historic figures. They're like, what were they? They're popular, and she goes, right. I was like, holy shit. That was not in the musical before. That's genius, like and it fits Ariana so well, and it still fits Glinda, like that like kind of aggressive happiness, that like aggressive bubbliness, it like came across there, and like I was like,
it's in the same way that like the bit of Elphaba like falling in Defying Gravity before she takes like flight, like is such a little thing.
Yes.
It's such a little thing that adds so much.
It's really
and
good.
Defying Gravity, that was the one I was worried about the most, only because that initial teaser.
Yeah.
Like we got that initial high note and I was just like, oh, no. And that was like
nails it.
And that was the thing I was waiting for. Like when I saw it in theaters, I think my face like literally went, I'm like, all right, here comes the high note. And when I got to it, I was just like, okay. I think I literally did this, like, okay, shit.
And I've listened to the soundtrack a bit since seeing the movie, and it's a really impressive note because it's different. Mm-hmm. It's different than Idina's note, like she's and I do feel I love Idina Menzel, but I do feel like, and that's the magic of her singing that note. She kind of like stretches to reach that note, and that's like kind of the magic. You can like feel she's like really stretching herself to sing that note, and that's what makes it great. But here she does something different, and it's like feels clear and powerful.
I do wish and maybe this is just me, but I've heard this from other people before, and I kind of agreed with them. Like, oh yeah, I do wish the soundtrack was a little less pitch corrected.
Oh yeah, I did. I feel
it has that like Glee-ish feel to it when you do that, where it's just like they can hit these notes. You don't need to like tweak it so much, and you almost get like digital artifacting from it.
Yes, and I say this when we were talking about AI voices and replacing AI voices cut off like not naturally, like how we talk, we like our mouths close and we finish the words. What happens with AI is they'll finish the word and it cuts. So your mouth doesn't close. And it's not like an edit, like you would feel like it is literally like the mouth doesn't fit, like the mouth stays open, and that's why AI doesn't work that way. And pitch shifting is very similar with it because it kind of does this like rounding on the end of notes, and you can hear it, and it's like instant, like it's kind of how you can be like, that thing has 6 fingers, that's AI. It's like you can find pitch shifting because you're like, that's too
I'd seen
good.
People,
that's too much of a natural turn.
Because there have been a bunch of videos where it's just like, because of course it's gonna get the like musical heads like going, where it's just like, oh, let's just play like both the version on the Broadway album and like the version from the soundtrack of the movie, and let's just talk about like the different nuances of like both versions of Defying Gravity,
because it's interesting.
Yeah,
it is.
And I remember one talking, I think it was from like a vocal teacher who was talking about like, oh, I just wish this wasn't as heavily edited on the soundtrack side. Like it's very pitch corrected, and all the comments being like, yeah, that's just the soundtrack though. It sounds better in the movie.
Yeah, it is. That's interesting because they must have gone through and mastered it then and kind of tried to.
Well, it's not the same exact performance. Like when you actually like listen to them like back to back, like it's similar, but they were two clearly different recordings, I think.
Oh. Well, so one thing is they sang on set.
Yeah.
So, and I've heard a lot of musical nerds being like, that's the difference. That's why this movie's better than all the movie musicals, is because they sang on set. And I'm like,
by that logic, Les Miserables would be the best movie musical in the world.
Yeah, you're like, I agree. I think you should sing on set. I think trying to lip sync to a musical feels dumb, like just sing, like just sing in person, like do the job you were hired to do, is basically what I think. But it's that might be the difference,
Yeah, and there's also
on set and then they
difficulties if you want to try and capture like the actual on-set audio.
Yeah,
especially for like big set pieces like that, which is why we generally don't do this live.
Yes,
because you end up with like a miserable. You're like, ugh. You should have just dubbed this over. Not for every song, obviously.
Not for every song, but I do it overall. I enjoy this. I am scared for Wicked for Good. That's the new title of Wicked Part 2. Which I also disagree with that title. Also, you're like, Wicked for Good. It makes it sound like it's the fourth Wicked. What the fuck are we doing?
I get it, just because it's the name of one of the songs in the second half.
Good. But I get it. It's been changed for good. It's an important song.
I hope it's still part 2 on the title card, just because
that would be like calling this Wicked Part 1 Defying Gravity. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I hope that it's still part 2 on the actual title card, because it'd be weird to have part 1 and then not followed with a part 2.
Yes, I agree. I feel like,
which is another thing people have been tricked into, was just like with Dune, just like, don't call it a part 1 until you get to the title card and it's too late to back out.
Yeah, right. I did love that though, because like I saw a bunch of people being like, part 1, like as they're sitting in their seats, like turning to their friends going, part 1, like, and you're like, yeah, what the fuck did you think was happening here? Like,
yeah,
but
people forget, or just don't know. People fell for it with like people fell for it with Across the Spider-Verse. Just like when this was first announced, it was supposed to be Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and 2.
Oh my god, that cracked me up that everyone was like, you're leaving me on a cliffhanger? And you're like, yeah, what?
Yeah, same thing with Infinity War. It was supposed to be Infinity War Part 1 and 2. And now everyone's starting to get the thing where just like, ooh, people don't like it when we split it into parts, so what do we just trick them instead?
Why don't we just trick them?
I love that that's like both things. We got to trick people into seeing musicals by not advertising it as such, and we got to trick people into seeing like two-parters by not advertising it as such.
You're just like, Jesus Christ.
But also, especially on the musical side, like the numbers don't lie, it works.
Yeah, it does, and that sucks. But overall, I think Wicked will improve movie musicals moving forward. I think that the success of this potentially. I think the success
dependent
of
on how well that second half turns out.
Yes, true. But this has been such a smash success. It makes me hope that they're turning to other musicals and being like, it's your turn, like to all these other musicals, like, cause I hope this can lead to a renaissance of the movie musical instead of, just a shining moment.
Yeah.
Like I'm because people, that's the thing I got leaving it is for some reason it like filled me with hope for movie musicals. Is that weird? Is that like I left being like, we could do so much more. We could do all the movie musicals. Look how good this is. Look, we could do them all. Like, it's just like it immediately made me be like, come on, let's go.
I'm sure it would have given me hope if I had like seen this after the second Joker film.
Yeah, right. You would have been like,
which I haven't seen yet.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
I also fucking hate jukebox musicals.
Yes.
So
yeah, I'm not a big. My wife is a big Moulin Rouge fan, and I'm always kind of like,
bleh.
like, I mean, Hugh McGregor, Nicole Kidman, they're beautiful.
Yeah,
like,
of course. But
of
I
course.
the only Baz Luhrmann project I've ever liked is The Get Down, and it got canceled, so I can't win either
what
way.
was the other one that Baz Luhrmann did recently? He did something
Elvis.
good. Elvis. Yeah, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, Elvis wasn't bad.
Yeah, that was
I'd say he's finally starting making things I like.
Yes, right. He finally turned around.
But we're starting to like wind down here. I did want to
Yes.
mention it before we forget.
Yes.
Where because I knew they were going to do it. I knew they were going to put an Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth cameo somewhere. I just wondered where. The way it's incorporated here is pretty perfect.
Yeah, I was smiling, like it, and everyone who I was with who was a fan of the musical before was smiling. Like it's a perfect cameo. It fits the universe. It feels right. The song they're singing, Idina kind of gets to do her note there, and like it just feels right and it feels fun, and I couldn't stop smiling when it happened. I was like, this is great. That's just, it just feels right.
And it's better than just like a blink and you'll miss it. Like, there they go. I'm just like, we actually got to.
We did get a cameo from Stephen Sondheim, Stephen Schwartz. Sorry,
He's Schwartz. The wizard will see you now, guy.
The wizard will see you now. Which, to be fair, that's about the cameo I expected from Idina Menzel. So for them to get a song and them like kind of recreating stuff and like I don't know, it was just like, okay, this.
Which we haven't even talked about, like Stephen Schwartz, like in his like accomplishments, lyricist for a bunch of like Disney movies.
Oh my god, he's
songs
insane.
that you like. He also like wrote the songs for the Prince of Egypt.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's crazy. But I think he's one of those guys that like is just one of those musical greats. Like he's unstoppable. Like you're just like,
and
damn.
This like he basically played the long game with this whole enterprise and basically won. Yeah. Because Wicked was optioned like very early on, like when it was published, but he had the idea to just like, I want to make a musical of this. So why don't you give me the musical rights, and then maybe we could hold off on doing a straight adaptation of it. Maybe we could work on this musical thing first. And so it's one of those things where like the musical became so popular that any idea of like a straight adaptation of the book were basically squashed, and now we finally have the adaptation.
God damn. You're like, what the fuck? I forgot he also did the music for Enchanted. That's wild. But the Prince of Egypt, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Pocahontas, Godspell. Holy shit. That's crazy.
I mean, Pocahontas is flawed, but it's got pretty good songs.
But like that, I mean, guys, that's insane. Like, I don't think you're like putting it together here. The Godspell, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Wicked, and Prince of Egypt. I feel like that's a GOAT status right there. That's fucking crazy. Like that's some insane shit.
Yeah, and he also headed the because there was a Prince of Egypt like stage adaptation.
Yes. Yeah. It said actually, right there,
which they actually came out of a pro shot for. I haven't watched it yet.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah,
sounds like a good time. They also said here there was a PBS thing called Wicked in Concert, which I've never seen. But I'm sure it's not actually a pro shot. I'm sure it's just like people singing Wicked songs.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like some like either that or some like Wiz Live stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And you're kind of like, oh, not as cool. But I mean, overall, I think that this is a project I've been waiting for a really long time, and to go in with such high expectations, like I was going in being like, if this is bad in any way, I'm going to tear this fucking apart. Like, I'm just like, I'm going to be so fucking angry if this is bad, and I think that they did a great job. I think that I think they did a great job. They brought this and they're going to, I think it's going to make such a huge impact and change a lot of things, which is great. I do think my one other complaint I forgot to say is that there is I think the choreography in this is quite good, but there's some moments of TikTok dancing that I don't exactly feel like they fit, but like, I guess they're modern, like that's kind of just modern dancing, like, so
Yeah,
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 there was some parts where I was like, that was weirdly modern, like, where you're
yeah.
just like,
And
that
whenever
was
something like that
strange.
is incorporated, it's always like, one, it feels anachronistic, and two, you have to tread carefully with stuff like that because that could feel dated in a month.
Right, exactly. That's what I was thinking too. I was like, they kind of did a move there that looked like a TikTok dance, and people might not know that that was a TikTok dance, like, or something, like, just kind of like there's a difference between the what is this feeling and them walking with the books, and then there's like the background dancers doing TikTok dances. Like there's like using modern movements to do a musical scene, like
Hmm.
the walking and dancing with the books. I felt like that was actually really well done. But there's like background scenes of dancing through life where you're kind of like, what the fuck is that guy doing back there?
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, you're like he's doing a different set of moves that shouldn't be allowed. Like, like, you're just like, what the fuck? But that would be my only complaint, really, other than like that scene of the dance hall and a few dancers that kind of off put me. I feel like overall this is a great movie. I'm scared for part two. I want it. I want it now.
I
I'm
think
excited, but
I think if they're able to expand and like deepen the narrative as far as
mm,
like character interaction goes, like they did for here, and try to apply that, because I imagine part of all the stuff that we have added here for this first part was in part to like kind of cushion that second half. So
yes,
we'll see if it actually pays off.
yes, I believe so too. It was kind of like sandbagging against
And
that.
plus,
So
movie wise, it'll still play, I think, only because that's when all the iconic like Wizard
yes,
of Oz shit comes in.
yes, exactly. That's why I think it'll play. Is that all the things as familiar will happen.
Yeah.
Like, and you only got a glimpse of the familiar here with Dorothy running and the monkeys coming in, but like the next part is a lot more
But
Wizard of
thankfully, the
Oz.
next part's also coming in quick succession. Like, we're just getting it this time next year.
Yeah,
They actually shot both parts simultaneously, unlike a Dune, where you're
yeah,
just like,
right.
we'll just hope it does well.
You're like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like, it's one of those
We'll
things
just
where you're like,
adapt the first half of the book and hope it does well. Oh boy, COVID.
oh boy, COVID.
This could have been gone very differently.
Oh fuck, that's funny. But Sean, what are your final thoughts on the movie, though?
I think it's a good time. I don't think if you're someone who's especially averse to musicals, like I
Mm,
don't think this is going to be the one to sell it. Like
yeah,
this is like the platonic ideal, like musical theater nerd shit. So if you're already not into that from the jump, it's not going to be the one to sell you.
mm,
But if you're a general audience member who likes even the occasional like musical and the like, you'll probably enjoy it.
mm,
It's a good time. It's like it's one of those things where like, yeah, there's a reason why it's lasted so long. There's a reason why
yes.
even the Broadway album is like one of the best selling albums, period.
It's insane. It really is. Like the plays on it are incredible. If you look on like YouTube music, like of course, like the one
I'm
right
sure.
now, Defying Gravity sing at 19 million for like the newest soundtrack.
Yeah. And I'm sure
But
it's getting a huge bump just because this is
yeah,
out now.
the original hold on, for Defying Gravity is sitting at 57 million on just YouTube. So that's not counting Spotify. Like that's an insane number for a musical. That's an insane number. That's pop chart level numbers.
For a musical
Like
that's over 20 years old.
yeah, that's the crazy part to me too. Like is that this is an old property and we're kind of all of a sudden reviving it in a big way, like, and I'm excited for it because I'm a big fan. So like, I'm excited that there might be more Broadways, that there might be I mean, there's endless toys and merchandise for Wicked. So if you want anything Wicked, it's out. It's fucking out there.
Yeah.
Like even a couple clients we covered had at work, they had Wicked stuff. Like I won't say what clients, but like they had Wicked products out. You're like, what the fuck? But like it's crazy. Everyone's in on Wicked, and to be fair, I think it paid off because like they did a big money bet, being like putting all this merchandise out and like all this advertising and everyone being involved and all this press tour, and it sounds like it's paid off because we're definitely getting part two. Like it already shot, but like like it's coming already. They announced the date. It's November 25th next year or something like. It's November.
Yeah.
So,
I know it's November.
I know it's November. I'm excited. I want more. I am scared a little because part 2 is darker and
Yeah, I'm on the cautiously optimistic side.
cautiously optimistic. It's like it's the problem with these part 1s. Is we talk about it every time we talk about any part 1. Is that the problem is that the first part it matters so much and it does so well, but if part 2 doesn't do well, it ruins part 1. You know, like that is a problem with this sort of thing. You know, like it's just that sometimes the first part, even no matter how good it is, if the second part that it was leading to isn't, it ruins the movie.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
sometimes
Like,
you can compartmentalize them.
yeah,
I mean, I do it all the time with The Last Jedi. That's not like a
You're like,
direct
that's
part
the
1
only
and 2,
good one.
but it's just like, yep, still love that movie, even if Rise of Skywalker completely undermines it.
Seriously, you're just like, God damn, like, you're like fucking hell. But basically, guys, I think that you should go see Wicked. It should be on your Warp shelf. I'm gonna own this the minute I can. I've already asked for Christmas for the vinyl because it's green. Comes in green. I want a green vinyl. Give it to me. And I just think it would. I'm excited. This movie got me excited. Is basically it. I've been talking about this movie with a lot of people. It's a good movie.
Good time.
It's worth seeing.
Also, shout out to the Alamo Drafthouse for the cool themed food and drink items they had for this.
That's cool. What they have? Anything good?
They had like a Yellow Brick Road burger. They had they had like a Glinda themed drink, so it was like this pink alcoholic drink. They always do like cool stuff.
That is cool. I love shit like that. Yeah, Chunky's did a similar thing, but I forget what they did. They did like Cowardly Lion drink and like something else. It was wild. I was like, what the hell is going on here? But they always do like drinks. They don't do it. Sometimes they'll do food, but the foods are kind of set. They're kind of like, yeah, it's like the Black Panther burger is always the Black Panther burger. You know, like it's one of those things. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you check out our other reviews of all the other movies and episodes we have out. You may find those episodes either on this YouTube that you're watching. You might be watching us on YouTube, or you could be listening to us on any podcast platform. Literally any podcast platform you have, we're probably on it. Look it up, The Warped Shelf.
Yep.
Like that's all you have to do. Even if you just Google it, we'll pop up. And if you want them all in one convenient place, you can go to galaxygeek.com, and you can check out all the episodes and any other geeky things that are on that website. And if you want to check out our own personal social medias, I am Yep Frank or Yep Gundam, if you're into that sort of thing, or Yep Fish if you're into fishing. And Deshaun?
And I'm Mod Krika pretty much everywhere. I'm mostly active on Instagram and Threads, mostly for media thread stuff, which, where am I now? I'm like mid 500s.
So you're my biggest thread friend. Like, you know, I know a bunch of people who use Threads, but you're obviously the most involved. Yeah. Are you tempted to go to Blue Sky?
I already have a Blue Sky account.
Oh, really?
I did them mostly because like there was that fucking mass exodus from Twitter a couple weeks ago, and like all these artists that I love to follow on Twitter are like now moving over there. So I'm like, all right, I'm moving over there just to have it and just so I can keep up with them. Okay. Mostly, but like I have enjoyed doing the media thread, so I'll probably just post on both. I'll post on Threads and Blue Sky for like next year.
Right, just copy paste. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's surprising. I don't have a Blue Sky, so I was interested in what you thought about that. So maybe I will get a Blue Sky then.
It's all the same shit. It's just a matter of like it's it's just one is a lot more toxic than the other, and always has been. Always has to remind people. Twitter didn't go bad because Elon bought it. Twitter was always bad. It just got worse.
Yeah, it was like it's always been a nuclear pit of you know, like a violent scum, but like it is turned to worse. You know, like it's like all of a sudden all the people that were always bad got louder, you know, like, and you're just like, yeah, all right. But anyways, but you know, check us out on our social medias, check out our show anywhere you listen, and just hit some buttons down below on whatever platform you're on to make it
beast,
feed the
beast,
likes,
the subscribes, the whatever it is, depending on where you're listening.
You do. And be sure to be looking out. We'll have more episodes coming soon. And we'll be back to you guys soon.
Yep. We'll see you then.
Adios.